So today on Mark My Words, I have a guest that I have known for a few years now, thanks to Twitter and the blogging community. A lot has changed in both of our worlds since then, since the humble beginnings of our blogs, which Bob Haegele here, who I finally, right before we hit record, now know the proper pronunciation of his name. And he's a man who is all about personal finance, and he's the Frugal Fellow that everybody, or at least a lot of people in the blogging community, know him as. He's a man who's never seen a penny that he didn't want to save, and he is with me today. Welcome to Mark My Words, Bob. How you doing?
Doing really well. Thanks for the intro. That was really good. Appreciate it.
I think these things up like at least 5-6 hours in advance. I'm like, how am I going to be creative and introduce this person, make them feel good?
Yeah,
and
that was really good.
Thanks. And if you're watching, Bob is also holding his mic like it's the 1960s or 70s, and I love it. And it's like you're Howard Cosell or something. So
I was going to say like a rock star, but you know.
Okay, we can do Rockstar. I mean, Howard Cosell, some people, didn't really like him, so I can dig going with the Rockstar. It's a little cooler, I guess. But today, I wanted to bring you on, not only to talk about all the awesome stuff that you're doing, and I know you have something going on that you're trying to transition a little bit. I don't want to say away from the finance and frugal writing that you do, because I know how passionate you are. But with the pandemic going on, I know, much like you have been doing, you're always thinking and trying to find other things to do. With, I guess you're doing graphic design now. I have your LinkedIn page pulled up. But before we get into all of this, let's talk a little bit about the moment that you decided that you wanted a little more out of your life, because you're working in corporate America just like a lot of us. And what was the point where you said, hey, I think I want to take this in another direction. I want to do something that's representative of me?
Well, that was a really long time in the making, actually, because I was working in healthcare IT for almost 9 years, and you know, I I went to a private university, which is obviously very expensive, especially because I didn't get very extensive. I got some financial aid and but not I got nothing close to like a full ride or anything like that. So when I went to school, I knew that I needed to have a job that would pay me well and everything like that. So I went into IT as my major, and I ended up working in IT. And so I did earn a good pretty good stable income. But then in I guess I think it was 20 I can't remember if it was 2017 or 2018, but I know it was in the summer. I finished paying off my student loan. So that was a big part of it, because I knew that I needed a job that would allow me to get out of debt, which I did. So I was able to completely pay off my student loan. So obviously that was a huge part of it. And really, the years leading up to that, I had been really kind of unhappy with just that lifestyle. I knew I wanted to do something where I had a little bit more freedom, a little bit, a little bit more. I don't want to say creativity, because I don't know, I'm not the most creative person, but just have more freedom and flexibility to be able to do what I wanted to do, rather than have work for somebody else and have them tell me what to do. So I'd been pretty unhappy with it for a while. And then basically I was just in a situation where I took another job, because at this job I wanted to, as I said, I wanted to do something where I felt like I had more creativity, or not creativity, but more flexibility to kind of do something, work on something that was not just like maintaining the status quo, which is kind of like the jobs that I had. So I wanted to do something that was a little bit, like I said, creating something. So I was kind of doing that, but the job wasn't really wasn't really what I expected it to be. And I just wasn't getting as much guidance as I'd gotten in previous jobs, I feel like. And I don't know, it got to the point where I like to say that it was like a game of chicken, because in those jobs, it's like you can't, I don't know that they have like a lot of liberty to be able to fire people necessarily, especially for just performance. Like I didn't do anything bad, but the job was not going well, and just things were not going very well with it. So I just decided to leave, because I was like, I don't have any, debt anymore, and I'm not happy here. And it's like, they're not happy with me apparently. So I'm just going to leave anyway. So the only thing about it that didn't go as well as I wanted it to is I didn't have like as much savings as I wanted to. I didn't have my freelance career or anything like that built up as much as I wanted to. But you know what? I like I said, I had no debt. So I was like, I'm just going to leave, because, this isn't what I want to be doing anyway. So I may as well just get out of here. And that's what I did.
And I remember that era, and I know before you did make that transition, you were already building up the Frugal Fellow and building up your reputation. And I'd be curious to know, I know that, or at least my impression is, you paying off your debts was an inspiration for this. But was there ever a time where you envisioned creating or, giving people financial advice? Because you're like really good at it.
Well, yeah, actually, I think I did. I think I have talked about that like on my about page and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, that was kind of like the inspiration. Actually, so the other thing about it is that when I was in school, I started out as an English major because I actually liked writing. I mean, just to give you one example, I took Spanish in school, and I took Spanish for 2 years in high school and then 2 semesters in college. And I was always not great at like the listening and speaking part of it, or yeah, the listening and speaking part of it. I was just like I guess like my comprehension just like wasn't fast enough. Like I always feel like when people are speaking Spanish, they're always speaking really fast. So I struggled with that. But then the writing part with it, like I did so much better on the writing part. Like writing, I was just kind of came naturally to me. And like even in Spanish, I was better at writing than I was at speaking it. So writing is just always something that's kind of come naturally to me. And it's like I said, I started out as an English major, but again, as I said earlier, I switched to IT because I was like, I need to make money right out of the gate so I can work on this debt that I have. Because, I come from a middle-class family, and not that we're like poor or anything, but I wasn't like, my parents did completely pay for all of my college. They helped me. They did help me with it, but they didn't like pay my whole tuition or anything like that. So it was like, I had to pay for this. And so, so I switched to IT because of that. But then, because I had so much debt, I was like, I'm going to bring the two together, and I'm going to try to inform people like, hey, maybe don't take on almost 6 figures of student loan debt. Cause that's, I basically, if I had done it differently and like gone to a community college or applied to more state schools, because I applied to one state school that I did not get into, and that was kind of like, I didn't have much of a backup plan, so that was part of it too. But just to like tell people, you gotta like, do things right from the beginning, basically, which I didn't understand at the time. So like I said, I really enjoyed writing, and I wanted to be able to help people make better money choices, because my money choices when I was younger were not the best. And so I figured, why not just bring those two together? It's something that I think is really useful. A lot of people need help managing their money and things like that. Like I said, I know I did. So I just thought I'd bring the two together.
So if you could go back, what would you do differently with your money and savings?
Well, savings, like the reason I give my blog the name that it has is because I've always been naturally frugal. Like I'm not somebody, I see these memes, where people are like, oh, I went into Target and I didn't get out of there for like 3 hours or something like that.
Yeah.
But me, I'm like a get in, get out type of person. Like I don't go on shopping sprees. I don't have like the temptation. And I mean, whatever, we all have our quirks, but that's never been a thing for me. I don't get like tempted to spend a whole bunch of money. So yeah, I've always just been kind of like naturally frugal. So but again, I mean, it's really just the college thing, and like I would say, and I've talked about this in some articles I've written where I think there should be a little bit more, and it is starting to happen, but more like financial literacy, that being taught to younger people more, because I didn't even know about all these I mean, there were scholarships I could have applied for. The one I like to talk about it all the time is like there's like a golf caddy scholarship. Like it's a full scholarship. I talk about this all the time because I had no idea this existed. And like, granted, it's a pretty selective thing. So even if I applied for it, like I probably wouldn't have gotten it. But just finding that out after the fact that there's there's the scholarship, and it's also a very rigorous process. You have to have like all these recommendations. So I'm not trying to downplay it or anything, but just like I feel like I could have done that if I had put in like the effort and whatnot, because there's other things like, my roommate was like in the military, and like that's not my thing. Like I couldn't have done that, but I was like, the golf caddy one, like I probably could have tried it. So my point being is that I think I didn't know enough about kind of all the different scholarships and all the different opportunities that were out there, and I think there should be more of that. But yeah, I definitely would have like applied for more of the scholarships, and like I said, applied for more state schools. I didn't even really consider community college. Like I would have at least considered it maybe. So because like I said, the thing about it was I have three sisters. They all went to the same state school. So I was like just going to go to that school. And so I just didn't have much of a backup plan, like I said. So yeah, so having more of a backup plan in terms of college, and then just researching more of the scholarships, and like basically trying to get as much help as I can, because having that debt, like I said, it does set you back several years, which then it's harder to invest and things like that. So yeah, like I said, just having more of that knowledge from the get-go would have been very helpful.
Everything you're saying here reminds me of something that I just discovered in recent years, where I didn't know, and I wish I would have known years ago, that they actually have scholarships for people born with like a cleft lip and palate, which was me. And I didn't know that. I'm like, oh, I wish I would have known that.
Yep.
That would have saved me a lot of money. Maybe I still wouldn't be paying my student loans off. And I feel like now I'm not even near the six figures that you're at. I'm way, way lower. I think I had more like just setbacks in life where I was like, okay, I'm going to defer for a while, going to put this off. So now I'm kind of like continuing on with paying. But yeah, it's very important. If there's anything unique to you at all, to research that and find out if there is a student loan.
Yeah, and as always said, I feel like it's not guaranteed. I mean, even if you apply for some of those things, it's not like you're going to get them. But just to like know afterward, well, like I didn't even try. I think that's the part about it that kind of frustrates me, knowing like I didn't even attempt to do this, and it's could have been something that could have potentially helped me a lot, and I didn't even attempt it. So that's the kind of the part that frustrated me about it.
Well, I think the not knowing was what frustrated me, because it was something that was literally right under my nose that I probably could have researched and checked it out. And once I learned about it, it's like, oh man, that's a big loss right there. But yeah, that's very good advice. And so let's talk about, so you had all this debt that you wound up paying off. The Frugal Fellow is kind of like, I'm sure, born or being thought about in your head over the course of time. And really, I just want to find out if you had, like, what was basically the lifestyle changes that you made in order to get that mountain overcome. Like, how'd you conquer all that debt?
Yeah, I mean I will say I was very very lucky. Like I should start with that. But I talk about the one thing, because I've been kind of refining the concept with my blog for a while now, and kind of the way that I'm my new kind of focus that I'm going with is obviously frugality, but also saving money in kind of the most efficient way. because we're all busy. We all have a lot of things going on. So the whole thing with like clipping coupons or whatever, where there are these like little kind of things. I mean, not there's anything wrong with that, but my approach now is the top-down approach, as I'm calling it, or some people talk about the big three. So focusing on those big expenses first, and kind of working your way down, rather than people have a tendency to start at the bottom, and that's just not the most efficient way to do it. And the reason I mention that is because that's really what I did. I mean, and this is also why I say I was lucky, because I lived with my parents for like 4 years, I believe, after school, after college, and they didn't charge me rent. So I mean, that's why I say I was lucky. And actually, I got like a lot of meals even. So just those big expenses. So it's housing, transportation, and food. Now I did have a car payment for a while there. I had my own car, and I was doing payments, but I did pay my car off early. And in fact, I remember this. Now, I don't know how common this is, because I'm not an expert on auto financing, but I know that I was not able to pay more than the minimum payment on my car. I wanted to pay more than what my regular monthly payment is. And for whatever reason, it was through Wells Fargo. They wouldn't let me pay more than the minimum, but I could pay it in a lump sum. Don't ask me why they do that. That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't understand why they did that, but I did that too. I saved up. It was like $10,000. So I saved that up, and then paid off my car loan. So I had no other than gas at the time, I had no transportation costs either. So yeah, I was able to knock out my transportation costs and my housing costs, and then having a decent salary. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. So knocking out those big expenses for me, I mean, I think that's something that, I mean, it's hard. Obviously, it's hard too, because obviously most people can't live in a rent-free situation all the time, and that's like not an easy thing to do. But if you can come up with ways to like really, like, even if it's like moving into a smaller house or something like that, but yeah, really just focusing on those big three expenses, or top down as I call it, that was really the key for me, plus having a decent salary.
And this is obviously a lifestyle that you've continued to live by. Like, this is kind of like a big part of your code. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is. Well, actually, so I don't live with my parents anymore.
Well, not that part. Yeah.
Well, no. But what I was going to say is I don't live with them anymore. However, I've moved around a little bit. I moved out when I was 26, and it's been almost 6 years now, actually. So I've moved around a little bit since then. And actually, when I first moved out, I was actually living with roommates, and it wasn't the best experience for me. It wasn't terrible. I mean, but it could have been better. So then after that, I was like, I just wanted to live alone for a little while. So I lived alone for like 3 or 4 years. But now I'm living with roommates again. So that's why I was like, I am actually going back to that, because I'm not in a place where I can live rent free necessarily, but my rent is half of what it was at the time. So it saved me like over $600 a month. So that's why I say, like, people talk about there's like the whole, like, skip the latte or whatever thing, but it's like really that adds up to maybe like, I don't know, $100 a month or what. Like, it's not that much money, right? So, compared to cutting my rent by over $600 a month, like that really makes a huge difference. So I am still trying to focus on those, and I'm still trying to work on, right now I'm actually leasing a car, but it's that's another long story. But I do want to eventually, hopefully, knock out the car payment, because I'm doing that again. So I am wanting to address that as well. So my rent is a lot lower than it was before, and hopefully I can get my car payment down too.
Well, speaking of your living situation, the one thing that really impressed me when, just following your story was when you said, you know what, I'm going to work on my blogging and writing career. I'm putting my corporate job behind me for a while. And you went off and really did something I would love to do. And talk about that experience a little bit and kind of like where you're at now.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was not easy because, like I said, I did not have as much of a plan in place as I wanted to, as I kind of, in a perfect world, imagined that I would. But the real world is not a perfect world, and so things did not go as well as like I said, as well as I would have liked them to go. So because I was trying to get into freelance writing, and I don't think I had any regular clients at that point. I mean, I was like getting into, I was like looking at job boards and stuff like that, but I didn't have like these big name corporate clients that some people have and all that. So, it was definitely not easy. Actually, so I've gone to FinCon, which I don't know how many of your viewers know FinCon. But I've gone to FinCon twice now, and the first time I went to FinCon, which is the Financial Blogger Conference. The first time I went, it's really it's kind of like partially socializing, partially like connecting brands with I don't want to say influencers because that's kind of a loaded term for a lot of people, but bloggers and podcasters and things like that. But the first time I went, like I didn't really talk to any of them. Like I honestly like don't think I even gave out any business cards. But the second time I went, which was this past September, I talked to a lot more of them, so I was able to get some clients. But for me, it hasn't been like super consistent. I mean, that's sort of the nature of freelancing in a way, but for me, it hasn't been very consistent. And because of the pandemic situation, that has kind of all fallen off. So now I'm trying to do some different things. A blog is bringing in a little bit of revenue, but it's not like full time. Like you hear all these stories about full time bloggers, but mine is not doing that. I still don't know if there's some magical formula that I haven't cracked yet. I don't really know. I'm still working on that. But the other thing that I'm doing, which I think I mentioned to you earlier, was that I'm starting to do web design. So that's we actually just finished our first, or we're wrapping up, I should say, our first project for that. So it kind of seems to be going better. I mean, it really helps to work with another person, even though, initially I was like, oh, I'm just going to strike out on my own kind of thing. But it really helps having another person to kind of like keep you accountable and, bounce ideas off each other. And she's kind of better at I feel like the client relation side of things more than me. So yeah, I mean, it just helps having people with different strengths and stuff. But that's where I am right now. Because like I said, freelancing hasn't really been very consistent for me. And right now I don't have really any regular clients. So kind of hoping that picks up. Still doing the blog, obviously. I will still keep going with that. But yeah, those are kind of my two main things right now.
So are you still just without a corporate job? Are you managing to hold up just doing what you're doing?
Oh yeah, that's the thing. I mean, so the unfortunate thing is like I've been burning through a lot of my savings. So I'm like not. I mean, it's obviously like not the best situation right now. But I guess the thing about it is, and the thing I keep thinking about is like, yeah, it's either it's not like I said, it's not ideal to be like using up my savings and stuff, but it's like it's either that or I go back to that lifestyle, which like the thing about it is like it was really taking a very serious toll on my mental health. And that's the part about it that I think is a hurdle that's too high to clear, so to speak. I mean, I was getting so stressed out, and it was actually it was like affecting my driving. Like I like got in a couple of like not serious car accidents, but like a couple of like fender benders. But like literally, it was because I was so stressed out that it was like impairing even my ability to drive. I'm like, this is not good. This is not the lifestyle for me, because I mean, everybody has stress, but I don't think it takes that much of a toll on other people as it does on me, because I don't know, it just like wasn't the right lifestyle for me, I don't think. So it's still a struggle right now. But like I said, having another person I'm working with, I think, is a really huge thing. And if this is any indication, I mean, we just started and we already have like one client, so I feel pretty good about it. I mean, hoping it picks up. But yeah, no, don't have a full-time job anymore because try not to go back to it, but we'll see how it goes.
And this is one thing that I want people to learn from my podcast. Here you are, you're a guy who found a passion, you're following it, and although there's been ups and downs with it, you're still holding up, there is no regret. Or at least I guess I shouldn't answer that part, but it sounds like you don't have any regret.
Well, so here's the thing. People talk about like self-employment and entrepreneurship being like really scary. And I guess what it is, I mean, the thing about it is like some people really value like consistency and stability, and that like kind of makes them like more grounded. But I'm kind of the opposite, because even though things have been little bit of a struggle, like I said, I'm still nowhere near the level of stress that I was when I was working in a corporate environment. And to me, that's all I need to know. Because the fact that I'm like nowhere near as stressed as I was, I mean, that to me just says right there, like it's just that wasn't the right lifestyle for me, and for some people it is, but I just couldn't do it anymore. So yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing about corporate America. I feel like everybody eventually finds like that role that they're good at, or they at least fit into. They may not be passionate about it, but they do it anyway. And I know for me, I actually found that I really liked being a manager. I did it for like 4 years. But once I was out of it, I had to start over and saw how much more relaxed and how much better my mental health was, even though I really did enjoy managing and making those connections with people. And I would at least consider it if I was put in that position again. But I personally can speak and vouch for what you're saying, because I've had moments over the past few years where I have worked from home and that's it. Like I had maybe a lull in employment, and it's amazing. Like if I could, if one of my projects could take off a little more, I would definitely say bye bye to corporate America. I just can't do it at this point, and it's everybody's situation is different, and I think it's amazing. You put yourself in a situation where you could live a life that you could feel happy with, and I think that's something that I want people to learn, among many other things. I want them to learn that something like that is possible. You can do it, and you have proven it just by showing incredible discipline with your finances and everything else. You've something to say.
Yeah, well, the unfortunate thing is, I'm not anywhere close to financial independence, which, a lot of the people you hear on these, podcast interviews and whatnot, they are financially independent. I'm not anywhere near that, but I mean, obviously, like I think one of the main reasons I'm not is because of all that debt that I had, and I could have done things. So that's another thing is like I could have done things a little bit better because I didn't really invest very much at all. I was so hyper focused on the debt, which is good, but it also means that I wasn't investing and earning those investing returns. So like I said, because of that, like I'm nowhere near financial independence. So I think the story would be a little more inspiring if I was like already financially independent, but it was because of that debt and also the fact that I was like so focused on that. So that's another thing that I do, I should mention is that, getting your debt paid off is good, but you shouldn't completely ignore investing, because I think I would have been in a better position if I was like at least investing a little bit more than I was early on.
Well, I personally just find it inspiring because even though you may not be like a gajillionaire or anything, you're still living the life you want to live, and you're building something for you. And I definitely hope that people, anybody who listens, can get value out of that, because I feel like your personal happiness is very valuable. And I think if you're personally much happier than you were in some of the corporate roles you had, I mean, that's a big win.
Yeah, I definitely am, and that's yeah. I mean, I obviously I agree with that. Hopefully, I'm just hoping the financial part of it, kind of starts to take off a little more. But yeah, I mean, I'm definitely a lot happier doing what I am now. So.
Well, you talked about investing. What are some of your ideas for investing?
I the thing about investing, I like to like to do a KISS approach. Keep it simple, stupid. I don't like to overcomplicate things. So I literally just so for a while there, I was like literally just like uh, I think it was in like well, I was somewhat in VTSAX and then Fidelity's equivalent of VTSAX. So for anyone who doesn't know, those are just total stock market index funds. So you're basically just buying a tiny piece of the entire publicly traded stock market. But I am trying to do things a little bit differently now. I have tried some different kind of strategies, but I think the one that really for me I think is good in terms of optimizing your risk and reward is kind of obviously the majority of it will be domestic U.S. stocks. So basically like a total stock market index fund for that, and then a total bond market index fund. So you're buying all of the shares of the shares of the entire bond market, and then also like an international index fund as well. So like the domestic index fund, stock market index fund would be the majority of it. So maybe doing like an 80-10-10 kind of that sort of allocation, something like that. But basically, I don't like to overcomplicate things. Like I said, I do not do any like stock picking, trying to time the market. Like my whole thing is like I might try some different strategies here and there, but generally it's like you want to just kind of set it and forget it. Like pick something that you think is good. And because the thing about investing is there are day traders and there are like dividend stocks and things like that. But generally speaking, investing is a long game. You should have like a 20 to 30 year time horizon on it. And so I try to just like pick something that works for me and kind of just stick with it and don't touch it, because I don't know if you've heard this, like there was like some study done that showed like of like different stock portfolios, and like the best ones, the ones that had fared the best were like attached to people who had died because they'd never been touched, right? So it's like I like to remember things like that. It's like you really can't, overthinking it is just always a bad idea. So you can't overthink it. Just pick something that works for you and kind of stick to it. So that's what I'm trying to do.
Well, hopefully you get to enjoy your investments before you die. So let's put that
Yeah.
one right out there.
Yeah, right. That is true. Hopefully, yeah. Hopefully.
But as somebody who knows pretty much nothing about investing or the stock market, other than the fact that I know when it's doing well and it's doing bad, I will say that I like your approach, and I know that when I get to a point, that same point, I definitely think that's an approach I'm going to take. And I feel like, if just my personal opinion, if you don't know that much about the stock market, then I agree with the keeping it simple. And you clearly know more than me, but
Yeah, well, the other thing too is that like I said, I mean, when you're trying to time the market and do all this stock picking and stuff like that, I mean that's really stressful for a lot of people too. So if it's like if you're getting stressed out about it, I mean, there are graphs out there that show that the stock market has always gone up. I mean, it's gone up and down, but the general trend over the past like 100 years is still positive, even after the Great Depression, even after the Great Recession, and even the things we're about to go through now, I'm sure it still goes up on average. So just picking something that works and just like keeping it there is always the best, most reliable strategy.
well, speaking of right now and strategy, what we know about the graphic design that you're doing, and as far as I know, following you on social media, I know you do a lot of little uh, odd jobs on the side to make money, and we can talk about that a little bit. And I know I'm actually looking at one piece that you wrote to that effect. But what is your strategy moving forward with your career?
Well, like I said, yeah, I mean, it kind of really depends, because I'm trying to see the issue with it is that, it's hard to predict things, because it's like if something takes off, I'm just going to run with it. But really, I mean, right now, the one that I'm kind of hoping, or I feel like has the most potential, at least in the short run, is the web design, which we're doing. So I'm going to keep doing that, and I like I said, I'm going to keep doing my blog. I'm not going to, I'm going to keep doing that on the side, basically. And yeah, I mean, the only other thing that I do regularly is Rover, but I mean that that doesn't really pay that much money. I mean, I mostly do it because I just like dog. Like, I'm a huge dog person. I get paid a little bit, but it's not like whatever. I just think the hanging out with dogs part is honestly the best part of it. So, um, yeah, I mean, really, it's just I'm hoping that the web design thing that does really well for us. And there's some other things that we have going, like so with the person I working on the web design with, we have another website that we're working on, which is like it's like focused on entrepreneurship and investing. So it's sort of like investing for entrepreneurs and just like managing business and things like that. So we have that website, but we kind of like we still have it, but it's kind of like we're trying to do something that brings in money kind of more regularly. And given that we already have one paying client, I mean, that, like I said, that's a really good sign, because we just started doing this like a month ago. So yeah, like I said, I mean, the web design is kind of the main thing, and then we'll see what else takes off. I don't know. It's hard to predict.
So what role do you play in the graphic design company that you are a part of?
Like I said, it's web design, not graphic design. And so the reason I
Sorry.
say that's because just because I mean, it's obviously it is a different thing, because we're building websites for people. So I tend to focus more on like the technical stuff. That kind of tends to be, I mean, we both do everything, but I have the technical side is kind of more my forte, I guess. Kind of like setting up the back end with like plugins and things like that. And the nice thing about it too, I should say, is that one of the reasons we started doing this is because we met actually here in Raleigh, and we both had personal finance blogs at the time that were like kind of not necessarily like, they were, we weren't making like full-time income from it. So we kind of just decided to team up and kind of like do things together. So the cool thing is that, you can just build websites with WordPress. I mean, you don't have to, like, it doesn't even matter what kind of website it is. It doesn't have to be a blog. It can be an e-commerce site. It can be a, photographer's portfolio. Like, WordPress is extremely versatile. It can do all of that. So yeah, I mean, we're just using WordPress because we both had experience working with it already. So we're just using WordPress to build websites, and there's like a lot of demand for it, I think. So, but yeah, like I said, I'm doing a little bit more of the technical stuff, but we're both doing that, and yeah.
I think I actually understand what you're doing now, because I have an old friend who contacted me last year who wanted to do something similar, and I was like, nah, I don't want to do that. So, and it has nothing to do with the idea. I just have like, I guess I spend up to like 3 to 4 hours just commuting to and from work every day. Like, I just don't have enough time in the day. But my
Yeah.
understanding, and you have something to say. Go ahead.
Well, I was just saying, it's funny that you mentioned that, because she and I both want to do, like, we both basically hate commuting and want to do something that doesn't require us to be in an office every day. So that's another reason why we're doing this, because we just do it from home, and we don't have to be in an office. I mean, there are kind of like some dreams of possibly having like an office space one day, but right now, yeah, we're just doing it all remotely. So yeah.
So your base, my understanding is you have a client base, you're building up websites. How many like web pages have you guys done?
Well, like I said, just the one so far, but we just started like I can't remember when we started doing this. It was just, I mean, like, literally we started working on this. I don't even know if it was a month ago. It might have been like 2 or 3 weeks ago. So this is a brand new thing. But that's why I say the fact that we already have one client is a pretty good sign, because I think there's a lot of people who need it. And the thing about it is too, I mean, we're trying to create value. I mean, that's really what it comes down to, because there's a lot of websites out there that are not very good. and don't do their business justice. And so that's what we're trying to do: create websites that actually help them get more customers and help their potential customers understand what it is they do and help them sell their products better. So that's really what it is. It's a value add, and that's kind of the angle we're approaching it from. So yeah.
Well, this is probably a good time, probably the best time in history to be doing what you're doing. So I wish you all the success in the world with it. And
Well, yeah, I mean, oh, thank you. I was gonna say it is a good time, although I will say it's good and bad because we were going to a lot of networking events to try to meet, just plant seeds, as they say. Not necessarily get business, but kind of just like hand out business cards. Because there's a ton of them, local networking events, but we are not going to those currently. So it's harder to meet people that way, but yeah, I mean, obviously there's a lot of people working from home and stuff like that. So that's, in a way, it's good. Yeah.
well, you've been holding that mic for an awfully long time. I see you switching it up more and more. So I just which hands you're holding it with. So I'll try
Yeah.
to get down to the end here. And
yeah, no worries.
you're a trooper. So if anybody wants to work with you, whether it's Frugal Fellow, writing, I know that you promoted helping people with, I believe, their writing at one point, and you can clarify that. I see all this stuff, and it depends on who it is. If you may not feel like it, but I'm like, man, this guy's got a lot going on.
Oh,
So,
I do have a lot, but yeah, I mean, people can contact me through my website, thefrugalfellow.com. I have my email on there and everything. I have a contact form and stuff. So I'm not focusing too much on if somebody wanted to contact me, they could, but I am putting more focus on the web design right now. And our website is vizzbiz.com. Our company is Vizz, so VIZZBIZ.com. Obviously, we have a contact form on there. So yeah, if somebody wants to get in touch with us for the web design, that's how to do it.
and then obviously, if they want to read your awesome work, they can head to thefrugalfellow.com. And can they find you on Twitter as well?
Of course they can. Yep. So my Twitter handle is @thefellowfrugal, because @thefrugalfellow was already taken. But I'm just rolling with what I have. So @thefellowfrugal on Twitter. I am also on Pinterest, which it's the Frugal Fellow on Pinterest. I'm starting to get back into that a little bit because I have a little bit more time. It can be a bit of a time consuming, I should say. But yeah, the Fellow Frugal on Twitter and the Frugal Fellow on Pinterest.
All right. And before I let you go, if you had to give any advice to anybody who wants to follow a similar path as you have, especially the very unique one that you've chosen, what advice would you give?
I would say, there's really probably two things. If you can have like a decent amount of savings before you kind of jump into anything, that's always a good idea. Like at least a year. I didn't even have that, but again, my situation was a little bit, messy, I should say. But yeah, I mean, if you can have at least a year worth of savings, and normally people recommend like 6 to 8 months, but if you're striking out on your own, I think having a little bit more savings is a great idea. So at least a year. And then the other thing is a bit of a cliche, which is, just don't like think about it too much. If you know that you want to get out there and do your own thing, just do it. I mean, you can't just sit around and wait. If you know that you want to do something different, you just have to pull the trigger. But after you have those savings, I should say. So yeah.
And I would say even start with the roots of what you want to accomplish while you're still, if you are in a corporate job like
Yeah.
I've been. I started with just, so let me put it, I know I've talked about it a little bit in past episodes, but I started with just an idea. I wanted to write my book, and I thought, well, maybe I'll turn that into a blog. And so I've gone from just that idea, which has evolved, and then I did my own personal blog and have done so much trial and error with talking on camera and trying this, that, and the other thing, and now doing a podcast and feel super comfortable talking on camera, which I never thought I would ever do. So even though I'm still working a normal job, it's good to start while you're still doing that and learn. Like, the best day to start is today, as far as I'm concerned.
Yep, definitely.
All right.
Totally agree with that.
Well, I'm going to let you off the hook with holding that microphone. And thanks for being on Mark My Words. I know we had a little bit of a road bump as far as just getting this going, but it was awesome. It was great to finally talk to you off of Twitter.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, thanks for having me. It was really good. So
Awesome.
thanks.
Well, this was Bob Haegele. He's the Frugal Fellow. Go check him out. He's got a lot of wisdom. And I'm Mark Schmidt. Thanks for tuning in. I'll be back with another episode soon.